Counselor Zathar stared out the viewport as his ship approached Viridian Prime. The blue-green planet that had been his home for 30 years now seemed different somehow. Perhaps it was because he knew things would never be the same after what he had done. 3 days ago, he had sent an unauthorized message to Earth. He had warned the humans about the Council's plans to restrict their expansion and eventually control their resources. It was forbidden to interfere with Council decisions, but Zathar couldn't stand by while another species was manipulated and exploited. His ship docked at the central spaceport. No welcoming committee awaited him, only a small group of security officers led by colony leader Merrick. "Counselor Zathar," Merrick said, his voice cold. "You are to come with us immediately." Zathar nodded and followed without protest. Word traveled quickly among the stars. He had known there would be consequences. The security team escorted him to the Colonial Administration building. Citizens they passed on the streets whispered and pointed. Some looked afraid, others angry. "Is it true?" One woman called out. "Have you doomed us all?" Zathar kept his eyes forward. He had only done what he believed was right. In Merrick's office, the colony leader paced back and forth while Zathar sat quietly. "Do you understand what you've done?" Merrick finally asked. "The humans now know our intentions. They will prepare. They will arm themselves. And who do you think they'll target first? Not the distant council worlds, but us, their closest neighbors." "The humans deserve to know the truth," Zathar replied. "The council has no right to decide their fate." Merrick slammed his fist on the desk. "That wasn't your decision to make. You've put the entire colony at risk." Outside the window, Zathar could see people gathering in the central plaza. News of his return had spread quickly. "The council has contacted me," Merrick said. "They're sending Representative Dorn to assess the situation. You know what that means." Zathar knew. Dorn was ruthless in protecting council interests. "You should go home to Ilara while you can," Merrick advised, his anger softening slightly. "Explain to your wife why you've endangered your family." 12 light-years away, Lieutenant John Mason hurried through the corridors of Earth Defense Command. In his hand was a datapad containing information that would change everything. He entered Admiral Patricia Collins' office without knocking. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately." Collins looked up from her desk, annoyed at the interruption. "This better be important, Lieutenant." "We received a transmission from a council member named Zathar," Mason explained, setting the datapad in front of her. "He's warned us about their plans for Earth. They intend to control our expansion, limit our technology development, and eventually gain access to our resources." Collins scanned the report, her expression darkening. "How reliable is this information?" "Our analysts believe it's genuine." "The transmission came directly from a council ship and matches what our intelligence has suspected for months." Collins stood and walked to the window overlooking the shipyard where Earth's new defense fleet was under construction. "They weren't supposed to be ready for another 6 months," she said, looking at the massive ships below. "Orders, Admiral." Collins turned back to face Mason. "Accelerate the construction schedule. I want those ships ready in 2 months. Contact all off-world colonies and increase security protocols. And find me everything we have on this Viridian colony." "You think they'll be the first to move against us?" Mason asked. "No," Collins replied. "I think they'll be the first to feel the Council's wrath for Zathar's betrayal. And when that happens, we need to be ready to respond." Mason nodded and left to carry out her orders. Earth would not be caught unprepared. The warning had been received. Now humanity would show the Council exactly what they were capable of. Zathar entered his home quietly. The lights were dim, but he could see Ilara sitting in the living area, her back straight and tense. "You're back," she said without turning to look at him. "Yes," Zathar replied, setting down his travel bag. Ilara finally faced him, her eyes red from crying. "Everyone knows what you did. Our neighbors won't speak to me. Eric came home from school with a bloody nose because the other children called his father a traitor." Zathar moved to sit beside her, but she stood up and stepped away. I believed in the council too, she said, until I saw how they treated the Kalsorians. Their entire civilization gone because they refused to surrender their resources. That's why I had to warn the humans, Zathar explained. They're different. They might have a chance. A knock at the door interrupted them. Zathar opened it to find Grace Liu, the colony's military commander, standing there with 2 security officers. Counselor Zathar, the colony is dividing into factions, she reported. Half support your decision to warn the humans. The other half want you handed over to the council as a peace offering. And where do you stand, Commander? Zathar asked. Grace's expression remained neutral. My job is to protect this colony. Right now, that means keeping you alive until we figure this out. On Earth, Dr. Samantha Wright rubbed her tired eyes. She had been analyzing Zathar's message for days, looking for any hidden information. There's something else here, she muttered to herself. The message had unusual patterns that didn't match standard council communication protocols. Her computer beeped, indicating it had completed its analysis. Samantha leaned forward, her eyes widening as she read the results. Captain Bauman, she called over the comm system. I found something you need to see. Captain Richard Bauman arrived at her lab 20 minutes later. He was a tall man with a serious face, recently assigned to lead the first expedition to Viridian space. What have you found, Doctor? He asked. Samantha displayed a star map on the main screen. Zathar didn't just warn us about the Council's plans. He embedded coordinates for backdoor hyperspace routes that bypass Council monitoring stations. And this, she pointed to a blinking point on the map, is the location of a Council weapons depot near Viridian Prime. Bauman studied the map carefully. This changes our approach. Instead of a show of force, we can position ourselves strategically. There's more, Samantha continued. I think Zathar has allies on other colonies. There are communication frequencies listed here that don't match any known council channels. A resistance, Bauman said thoughtfully. Admiral Collins needs to see this immediately. Back on Viridian Prime, a sleek council ship arrived, docking at the most prestigious port. Representative Dorn stepped out, his tall, thin frame casting a long shadow. Council guards flanked him as he walked toward the Colonial Administration building. Merrick greeted him with the traditional council salute. Representative Dorn, welcome to Viridian Prime. This is not a courtesy visit, Dorn replied coldly. Where is Zathar? Under protection. The colony is divided over his actions. Dorn's eyes narrowed. There is no division when it comes to council law. Zathar is a traitor who must be held accountable. Bring him to me. And if I refuse? Merrick asked. Then you will share his fate, Dorn answered. The council fleet is 1 day behind me. They will blockade this planet and make an example of anyone who supports Zathar's betrayal. Merrick felt a chill run through him. The people deserve a chance to be heard. The people, Dorn said with contempt, will learn their place in the council's order. As will the humans, despite Zathar's interference. Commander Grace Liu assembled her officers in the colony's defense center. Maps and tactical displays covered the walls, showing orbital positions and ground defenses. The council fleet will arrive within 24 hours, she announced. We need to prepare for all possibilities. Are we really going to fight the council? A young officer asked. Their ships outnumber ours 10-1. Grace's expression remained steady. We're preparing to protect our people. Whether that means fighting or negotiating remains to be seen. She pointed to the main display. I want our defense satellites positioned here and here. Ground batteries should be ready for immediate activation. Civilian shelters need to be stocked and prepared. As her officers moved to carry out her orders, Grace turned to look out the window. Viridian Prime had been peaceful for generations. Now they faced the real possibility of becoming a battlefield. Zathar stood before a secure communication terminal in Grace's private office. The face on the screen belonged to Counselor Nera from the Proxima colony. Your message reached me, Nera said quietly. You're not alone in your concerns about the Council's direction, Zathar. How many colonies share your view? Zathar asked. 6 that I know of, but many are afraid to speak openly. The Council's influence runs deep. What about military support? The Council fleet will reach Viridian Prime soon. Nira looked troubled. I can send 2 ships, perhaps 3. Not enough to make a difference in battle, but enough to show solidarity. That may be all we need, Zathar replied, especially if the humans arrive first. You're counting on humans? Nira asked with surprise, a species that hasn't even developed stable warp technology. They're resourceful, and now they're motivated, Zathar said with confidence he didn't entirely feel. Eric, Zathar's 17-year-old son, waited until the library was empty before accessing the central data terminal. His father's actions had made the family notorious, but it had also made Eric curious. Why was the Council so afraid of humans? He bypassed the standard access protocols using skills his mother had taught him years ago. Ilara had been a data specialist before becoming a colony administrator. Deep in the restricted archives, Eric found references to ancient Council decisions. He downloaded files about species that had been managed by the Council over the centuries. Some thrived under Council guidance. Others disappeared entirely from the records after periods of adjustment. Then he found it, a reference to Earth from nearly 300 years ago. A Council survey ship had visited the planet during what humans called their Cold War period. The report contained a warning. This species shows unusual adaptability and aggression. Unlike other developing civilizations, they advance through conflict rather than being hindered by it. Recommend close monitoring and potential intervention if space travel capabilities advance. Eric's hands trembled as he copied the files. The Council hadn't just recently discovered humans. They had been watching them for centuries, waiting for the right moment to step in and control their development. On the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, Captain Richard Bauman reviewed final preparations for their jump to Viridian space. All systems ready, Captain, his first officer reported. We can depart on your command. Bauman nodded. What's our estimated arrival time? Using the routes from Councillor Zathar's message, we should reach Viridian Prime 12 hours before the Council fleet. Dr. Samantha Wright entered the bridge, carrying a datapad. Captain, we've decoded more of the hidden message. Zathar included schematics of Council warships. Their defenses are impressive, but their weapons systems have a vulnerability. They need 3 seconds to recharge between firing sequences. 3 seconds isn't much, Bauman remarked. It is when you're dealing with Earth ships, Samantha replied with a small smile. Our new point defense systems operate in milliseconds. Bauman returned her smile. Then let's go introduce ourselves to the neighborhood. Helm, engage jump drive. The stars outside stretched into lines as the Defiant and its escort ships accelerated to faster-than-light speed, beginning humanity's first journey to meet their allies and their enemies. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Viridian space, 5 ships in formation, with the U.S. Defiant at the center. They maintained their distance, holding position just beyond the colony's outer sensor range. No immediate response to our arrival, reported the sensor officer. They may not have detected us yet. Captain Bauman nodded. Good. Open a secure channel using the frequency Councillor Zathar provided. The communications officer worked at her console. Channel open. Sir. This is Captain Richard Bauman of the Earth Defense Fleet. We're here at the invitation of Councillor Zathar of Viridian Prime. We come in peace and offer assistance against Council aggression. The bridge crew waited in tense silence. After nearly a minute, the communications panel lit up. Message incoming, text only, the officer announced. It reads, verification code required. Dr. Wright stepped forward. That would be the authentication sequence in Zathar's hidden message. She recited a series of numbers and letters. When the code was transmitted, the response was immediate. A voice came through the speakers. Captain Bauman, this is Commander Grace Liu of Viridian Defense. Councillor Zathar is currently in protective custody. Representative Dorn is attempting to seize control of our communications array. We have little time. We understand your situation, Commander, Bauman replied. Our scans show the Council fleet will arrive in approximately 10 hours. We're prepared to offer assistance. The Council fleet carries enough firepower to reduce our colony to ash. Grace said, What kind of assistance could 5 Earth ships possibly offer? Bauman smiled. The kind that Council tacticians haven't planned for. In a secure room beneath the Colonial Administration building, Representative Dorn faced Colony Leader Merrick. Your security forces denied me access to the planetary communication array, Dorn said, his voice cold with anger. This is unacceptable. Merrick stood his ground. The array is vital for colony operations. I cannot grant exclusive access to anyone, not even a council representative. You forget your place, Dorn hissed. Viridian exists because the council permits it to exist. A security officer entered the room and whispered something to Merrick. The colony leader's expression changed subtly. Is there something I should know? Dorn demanded. Just colony business, Merrick replied calmly. Dorn wasn't fooled. Have the humans arrived? Is that it? When Merrick didn't respond, Dorn laughed without humor. What do you think will happen when the Council fleet arrives? Do you believe a few primitive Earth ships will save you? I believe in giving everyone a fair chance, Merrick said, something the Council forgot long ago. Ilara worked quickly at her terminal. As a former data specialist, she knew ways to bypass the colony's standard security protocols. How much longer? Asked one of the technicians working with her. Almost there, she replied. I need to route the signal through multiple secondary nodes to avoid detection. They were in an abandoned mining facility 5 kilometers from the main settlement. With Dorn trying to control all official communications, they needed an alternative way to contact the human ships. Done, Ilara announced. We have a secure channel. The screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of an Earth ship. A man in a uniform looked back at them. This is Captain Bauman of the U.S. Defiant. Am I speaking with representatives of Councilor Zathar? I'm his wife, Ilara. Zathar is being moved to a secure location. Representative Dorn is called for his arrest. We received your husband's warning, Bauman said, and we've come to help. Ilara looked relieved but cautious. The Council has done terrible things to species who resisted them. If you engage their fleet, they will show no mercy. Neither will we, Bauman replied, his expression hardening. Humanity has a long history of standing against bullies. We didn't develop in isolation like most species. We evolved through competition and cooperation. The Council fears what they don't understand, Ilara said, and they don't understand humans at all. Then it's time we introduced ourselves properly, Bauman said. We're sending you coordinates for a secure meeting point. Can you bring Zathar there in 2 hours? Ilara nodded. We'll be there. For the first time since Zathar's return, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. 6 massive Council warships dropped out of hyperspace, their silver hulls gleaming against the blackness of space. Each was 3 times the size of the largest human vessel. They arranged themselves in attack formation above Viridian Prime. On the colony surface, people looked up at the suddenly darkened sky with fear. The command deck of the lead Council ship was silent as High Counselor Neva surveyed the tactical display. The 5 human ships were positioned near Viridian's second moon. Such tiny vessels, Neva remarked. Hardly a threat. Her tactical officer nodded in agreement. Our scans show primitive weaponry and minimal shielding. They appear to be retrofitted exploration ships. Neva turned to the communication station. Open a channel to the colony and the human fleet. When the connection was established, she spoke with practiced authority. People of Viridian Prime, this is High Counselor Neva. Your colony has harbored a traitor who violated our most sacred laws. Surrender Counselor Zathar immediately. Human vessels, this conflict does not concern you. Return to your system, or face the consequences of interfering in council matters. In the abandoned mining facility, Zathar, Ilara, and Eric gathered with Commander Grace Liu and colony leader Merrick. A secure communications link showed Captain Bauman on the main screen. "The council fleet has arrived earlier than expected," Grace reported. "They're demanding we surrender you, Zathar." "And if we refuse?" Ilara asked, though she already knew the answer. "Orbital bombardment," Merrick said grimly. "They'll target government buildings first, then civilian areas." Captain Bauman's voice was calm. "We've analyzed their ship positions. They're maintaining standard council attack formation, which means they're following textbook tactics." "How does that help us?" Grace asked. "Because," Bauman replied with a slight smile, "we've studied their textbook. Thanks to the data Counselor Zathar provided, we know exactly how they'll respond to various scenarios." "You still only have 5 ships against their 6 warships," Merrick pointed out. "Sometimes it's not about the size of your fleet," Bauman said. "It's about being where your enemy doesn't expect you." Governor Alan Peters entered the colony's main communications center, flanked by security officers loyal to him. Representative Dorn was already there, preparing to respond to High Counselor Neva. "Governor," Dorn acknowledged with barely concealed contempt, "I was about to inform the High Counselor that we'll comply with her demands." "No," Peters said firmly, "you won't." Dorn's eyes narrowed. "You're making a grave mistake." "The mistake was trusting the Council to protect our interests," Peters replied. "I've seen the historical records Eric found. I know what happens to colonies that surrender to Council demands. We become nothing more than resource providers, stripped of our autonomy." "Then you condemn your people to death," Dorn hissed. Peters turned to the communications officer. "Send this message to High Counselor Neva. Viridian Prime refuses to surrender Counselor Zathar or any other citizen. We declare our independence from Council authority, effective immediately." On the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, Dr. Samantha Wright approached Captain Bauman. "The transmissions between Council ships are increasing," she reported. "They're preparing to fire on the colony." Bauman nodded. "Are our packages in position?" "Yes, sir. All 5 stealth drones are attached to their target ships." Bauman opened a channel to the other Earth ships. "All vessels, initiate Phase 1. The 5 human ships suddenly accelerated towards the Council fleet at full speed. On Council sensors, it appeared to be a suicidal charge. High Counselor Neva watched with amusement. "The humans are more primitive than we thought. Prepare to fire warning shots across their path." "Weapons charging," her tactical officer reported. Suddenly, every console on the bridge went dark. Emergency lights flickered on as backup systems struggled to activate. "What's happening?" Neva demanded. Her tactical officer looked up in shock. "We've lost all primary power. Weapons and shields are offline." On each Council ship, the same scenario was playing out. The stealth drones attached to their hulls had sent precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses through their systems, exploiting the vulnerability Dr. Wright had discovered in Zathar's message. The human fleet broke formation, each ship targeting a specific Council vessel. The battle for Viridian Prime had begun. Bright flashes lit up the space around Viridian Prime as the human ships fired precise shots at the disabled Council vessels. They targeted engines and weapon systems, carefully avoiding critical life support areas. "Direct hit on Target 3, reported the weapons officer on the Defiant. "Their main engines are offline." Captain Bauman nodded. "Continue the pattern. Remember, we want to disable, not destroy." The Council ships struggled to restore power. Their emergency systems were coming online, but too slowly to counter the swift human attack. On the lead Council ship, High Counselor Neva gripped her command chair as another impact rocked the vessel. "How is this possible?" she demanded. "Their technology should be decades behind ours." "The humans are using precision targeting," her tactical officer explained. "They're hitting systems in exactly the right sequence to prevent our automatic repairs from engaging." Neva's eyes narrowed. "Zathar, He must have given them our ship schematics. She turned to her communications officer. Contact our ground forces on Viridian Prime. Tell them to begin the bombardment of the main colony. Now. On the surface, Zathar led his family and a small group of supporters through an ancient tunnel system beneath the main colony city. The walls were carved with symbols from the original Viridian settlers, dating back centuries. Where exactly are we going? Grace asked, keeping her weapon ready. The historical records Eric found mentioned a defense system, Zathar explained. Our ancestors built it during the early wars, before the Council enforced peace. Eric studied the wall markings with a small light. According to the records, it should be just ahead. They entered a large circular chamber. In the center stood a control panel covered in dust. The technology looked primitive compared to modern Viridian systems. Will it still work after all this time? Ilara asked. Zathar brushed away the dust from the panel. Our ancestors built things to last. As he worked to activate the ancient system, the ground shook violently. Everyone struggled to keep their balance. What was that? Eric asked, fear evident in his voice. Grace checked her portable scanner. Council ground forces have begun orbital bombardment. They're targeting the government district. Merrick's face paled. There are still civilians in that area. Then we need to hurry, Zathar said, working faster at the controls. Governor Peters broadcast from an emergency bunker beneath the Colonial Administration building. His message went out to all Viridian colonies and beyond, carried by communication relays to the farthest reaches of known space. People of the free colonies, he began. Today the Council has shown its true nature. They claim to protect, but they destroy. They claim to guide, but they dominate. The bunker shook as another bombardment hit above them, but Peters continued. For too long, we have allowed the Council to decide which species may advance and which must remain controlled. For too long, we have been silent about disappeared civilizations and subjugated worlds. He played footage of the Council ships firing on civilian areas. Today, Viridian Prime stands with humanity against Council tyranny. We call on all colonies to join us in building a new alliance based on freedom and cooperation. In orbit, 2 more Council ships lost power completely as the human vessels continued their precise assault. Captain Bauman watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Sir, his communications officer called. We're receiving transmissions from multiple colonies across 3 sectors. They're declaring support for Viridian Prime. Dr. Wright looked up from her console. The Council's communications network is being flooded with Governor Peters' message. It's going everywhere. They tried to keep information controlled. Suddenly, the sensors detected a new energy signature from the planet's surface. Captain, something's happening on Viridian Prime, the sensor officer reported. Massive power buildup from the main colony. On the view screen, a shimmering dome of energy began to spread outward from the colony center, expanding rapidly to cover the entire main settlement. Bauman smiled. It seems our friends have found their teeth. The ancient defense system that Zathar activated created a protective barrier that the Council weapons couldn't penetrate. Centuries-old technology, built by Viridians before Council oversight limited their development, now shielded them from destruction. The tide had turned, not through superior firepower, but through the sharing of knowledge the Council had tried to suppress. High Counselor Neva stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The protective shield over Viridian Prime glowed bright against her ship's sensors. 4 of her 6 warships were completely disabled. The other 2, including her own, had only partial power. Order a retreat, she finally said, her voice tight with anger. Counselor, her second-in-command questioned, shocked. Do it, she snapped. We'll return with a larger fleet. As the 2 functioning Council ships began to move away, Neva glared at the view screen showing the 5 small human vessels. This isn't over, she whispered. The Council has ruled for 10,000 years. We will not be defeated by primitives. On the surface of Viridian Prime, people emerged from shelters to stare in wonder at the shimmering energy dome above them. Word spread quickly that Counselor Zathar had activated an ancient defense system, saving them from the Council's attack. In the underground chamber, Zathar monitored the system controls while Eric studied the ancient writing on the walls. "Father, look at this," Eric said excitedly. "These symbols describe how our ancestors shared their technology with other species. They believed knowledge should be free." Zathar nodded. Before the Council forced them to stop, the Council has always feared cooperation between species. Commander Grace entered the chamber. "The Council ships are retreating. We've won this battle." "But not the war," Zathar replied. "The Council will return with a larger force." "And we'll be ready," said a new voice. Captain Bauman stood in the entrance to the chamber, accompanied by Dr. Wright. Zathar stepped forward to meet the humans face to face for the first time. "Captain Bauman, Dr. Wright, thank you for coming to our aid." Bauman shook Zathar's hand, the human gesture of friendship feeling strange. "But welcome to the Viridian. Your warning gave us time to prepare. We owe you our gratitude." "And an alliance," Dr. Wright added. "We've already received messages from 7 other colonies declaring their independence from the Council." 3 days later, representatives from Earth and the 8 independent colonies gathered in Viridian Prime's central meeting hall. Colony leader Merrick welcomed them all. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," he announced. "For too long, the Council has decided which species may advance and which must remain controlled. Today, we form a different path." Governor Peters stood to address the gathering. "We propose a coalition of free worlds, where each species and colony determines its own future, where knowledge is shared, not hoarded." The Earth Ambassador, a woman named Kelly Grant, nodded in agreement. "Humanity joins this coalition as equals. We have much to learn from you, and perhaps some things to teach as well." Representative Dorn had been kept under guard since the Council retreat. He was brought before the gathering. "You realize the Council will crush this rebellion," he warned. "Your coalition cannot stand against our full might." Captain Bauman stepped forward. "The Council's power comes from control of information and technology. That advantage is gone now." Dr. Wright activated a display showing star charts. "We've already sent ships to contact other species the Council has suppressed. The message is spreading faster than the Council can contain it." Dorn was led away, his face pale with the realization of what was happening. That evening, Zathar stood with his family on their home's balcony, looking up at the stars. The energy shield had been reduced to a standby level, allowing the night sky to shine through. "Was it worth it?" Ilara asked quietly. "All the danger, the risk to our colony." Zathar took her hand. "Look," he said, pointing to where Earth ships patrolled alongside Viridian vessels. Eric joined them, excited from a day spent sharing information with Dr. Wright. "The humans want to establish a joint research center here. They say our ancient technology combined with their adaptive approach could create advances neither of us could achieve alone." In the distance, they could see the lights of a landing ship. More representatives from Earth were arriving to help establish the new coalition. "The Council thought warning humanity would be our downfall," Zathar said. "Instead, it was the beginning of something greater than they could imagine." Above them, the stars seemed brighter somehow, promising a future where no species would stand alone against the darkness.